Welcome aboard the Workplace Whiz, your audio gateway to the modern workplace. We designed this podcast as the place to discuss strategies, best practices, and share industry insights with our expert guests. This program is brought to you by Yarooms, the workplace experience platform. I'm Cosmin Patlageanu, marketing professional and published author. Today we're discussing the smart office revolution and how IoT tech enhances efficiency, reduces costs, and makes workplaces more sustainable. With me today, I have John Wang. John Wang is the co-founder and CEO of IAdea Corporation, a company focusing on transforming the world with digital signage technologies. IAdea's products empower brick-and-mortar businesses by bringing virtual intelligence into the physical space. Its innovations are licensed and distributed by leading brands globally. Large-scale digital signage deployments around the world are often built with IAdea technology. John led IAdea to receive Red Herring's Asia 100 Award as an innovative and fast-growing company. He fostered the birth of the digital signage industry by co-founding the web-based signage business group at W3C. Passionate about the development of digital signage industry, John currently serves as vice chairman of the Digital Solutions Multimedia Asia Association, evangelizing about advantages in digital signage at various industry events. In 2018, he received the Outstanding Individual Recognition at the Digital Signage Awards, an iconic milestone in the industry. John received his master's degree in computer science from the National Taiwan University and spent his early years in New York City. John, welcome. So, smart office revolution and how IoT can enhance efficiency, reduce costs, and make workplaces more sustainable. Now, IoT has become part of our working and personal lives for quite some time, and it's even more every year. As Statista estimated that in the next 7 years, the total number of IoT devices worldwide will double from 15 billion to almost 29.42 billion in 2030. And with it, the number of ways that the IoT technology can be leveraged will also grow. And of course, one of the most popular use cases in IoT technology in the recent years is basically the workplace. And companies use IoT devices like digital signage and smart lighting to make their offices run more efficiently and even create a more appealing environment for their employees. But how else can we improve our office, especially regarding efficiency, reduce some of the costs, and all these while boosting sustainability? And what other benefits can it offer? We'll try to answer all these questions today in our episode. So, John, you've been on the forefront of this industry for quite a while, and you implemented a lot of solutions. You have encountered a lot of situations and discovered, obviously, many use cases. What are the long-term financial benefits of investing in workspace IoT tech?
Sure, it's a great pleasure to join this webinar. Thank you for inviting us. So IAdea has been in this IoT industry for over 20 years. We, as you mentioned, we started doing digital signage when TVs were just becoming, just turning from big cubes into small flat panels that fit nicely on walls. And we've seen a evolution of how people use these technologies to improve our lives. A lot of these devices are working behind the scene. So I think one of the most common areas where you find IoT, I would say it's probably even outside of the workplace. You find devices for your smart homes these days. You have smart thermometers, you have smart lighting, you have sensors, intrusion detection. Things like that. You have music systems that synchronize across rooms. So these are all examples of how smart technology, IoT technology, can enhance our lives. The same thing happens in the workplace, because nowadays, especially after COVID, a lot more people are now working from home, at least part of the work week. So they've come to expect the same level of automation, the same level of comfort when they enter an office space. That's why we have seen a lot of employers coming to us looking for ways they can improve the workplace experience. And as you mentioned, the long-term benefits is really we look at it from two different angles. One is definitely improve the experience, the workplace experience that employees look for. The other is actually improving productivity. And productivity can come in so many different formats. It could be increased output from the employees. It could be, productivity from the space due to a more efficient utilization of the space. It could be savings from energy cost. So there's just various of benefits that we could expect to gain from introducing workplace IoT technology, and I think we're all here to explore that today.
Actually, I was thinking, about all the connected devices and all the smart devices, and I love watches a lot. All the complexity of the mechanism, and everything that a mechanical watch involves. And I was very reluctant on getting an Apple Watch eventually, and it's basically like part of my life right now. And one of the things
I know.
One of the things was like, it's going to be another thing to recharge. Exactly. So it's going to be another thing to recharge, and be mindful of. And fast forward some years, now I have like the light bulbs, turn them on and off, program them, and everything else. And to some extent, because of working from home for quite a while, my office at home is pretty much okay. I have all the bells and whistles. And I'm thinking about some of the offices which really don't, because, they're old buildings and they're all brick and mortar sort of business, and they were not designed to accommodate. So how do we do, and what are the first steps we should undertake in order to bring them to the 21st century?
Well, I think the place to start is to just make sure, the employees are getting their basic comfort. I mean, make sure your temperatures are set right? I mean, don't ask employees to go into a room and then they have to sweat through meetings. I mean, that's the least reason they want to be in the office. Make it nice and comfortable. There are various technologies to make sure that, right? I mean, you could have sensors that tell temperature, to set thermometers. I mean, you have some smart thermometers at home. Although I have to say, getting the same experience, the same automation in a commercial building, a commercial environment, is a lot more difficult than doing it at home. It's more complicated. However, there are technologies to get it done. And the office space is typically larger than the house, and it's probably more sparsely occupied. So you want to make sure you target your energy consumption in areas where there's actually people occupying. So you have occupancy sensors. And I think one thing that most employers have on their mind today is, how much is my space actually used? I'm paying all those rent, right? I'm holding this corporate real estate, and then my employees are telling me they can't find a available desk. But at the same time, when I go in there, there's rarely any people. It's rarely fully occupied. So who is telling the truth? How do I get the reality? So there are a lot of sensors, and on the other side, there's a lot of space management technology. So, for example, my company focuses on room scheduling and desk scheduling solutions. So you could have these modern-looking tablets-like devices that you'll mount outside of meeting rooms. So, for one, for employees who are actually going to the office, they have not reserved a meeting room in advance. They want to look for a place to have a call. They could just glance through the room and find a green light and walk in there and safely, and be assured that no one is going to come knock on the door saying, "I have this room reserved, but please, move and find another room." So they would easily find available rooms. They could tap a screen or tap their employee badge and have the room to themselves for the duration of their meeting. Same thing for workstations, desks. A lot of companies now have these like USB docks on desks, so all the peripherals are connected into this dock, and as soon as the employees brings in their laptop, they could just connect one cable and get the entire workstation up and running. So this kind of device is now also available in a lot of workplaces. And also with that comes reservation mechanisms. For example, there are devices with a small screen connected to the USB dock. So you can use a small screen to do reservation for specific areas you want to work during the day. The docks can also be used to drive energy savings. shutting down workstations where no one is actively using, because it's easily detected through the USB connection to the laptop. For small huddle spaces, for example, companies may have small areas with semi-fenced, acoustic shielding for you to have a nice, quiet meeting. And there also we're finding a need for a kind of a quick and easy way to allow the employee, the user of the space, to connect their laptop into all the equipment, all the audio visual equipment inside that huddle space to get the meeting started quickly. So just various technologies where we feel we can really modernize the workplace experience without costing an arm and a leg. I mean, these devices are relatively low cost. Most of them coming less than $1,000 US. You can modernize the space quickly and let the employees feel the impact instant.
That's fantastic. I was thinking about an old science fiction movie I watched when I was much younger, and there was a guy on a space station, and as he was walking on like a long corridor, all the lights would turn on, right? As he was passing by, the ones in the back were just turning off, and now it's a thing that you see in parking lots, right?
Exactly.
When you go down the corridor in the office, and it's something that kind of became normal these days.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that would be one use case. But let's take the situation where you don't have like the newest possible building, and there is an older office building, and people come to you, and what are the first things that they require from you? Do they come and say, I want some sensors around the office so I can see which of the areas are more appealing to people, or I want to lower the consumption? What's the most usual use case that you encounter?
That's a great question. So there are various use cases. Obviously, a lot of people that come to us they already know us for doing what we do. The line of products that we produce. So namely, room and desk reservation technologies. And for older buildings, indeed, adding any wire inside a building is a huge construction task. So a lot of times people look for wireless solutions, and we provide those as well. For example, we have e-paper based signs. So these are battery operated, small, similar to what you see in retail stores. Nowadays, you might find like price tags on retail shelves. Yeah, so you're familiar with them. So they are. We've made a version of that for like desk reservation. You could easily use that for rooms as well. So with a small sign, you could indicate whether that space is booked. Someone has reserved that space. When people check into that space, you could show the name of the person using that space, or you could show the title of the meeting that's happening inside that room, so people can identify which rooms are booked, which rooms are in use, where do I look for my colleague, things like that. So these wireless technology can relatively easily be installed without a lot of effort. Same thing for sensors. So customers may, one of the easiest, most common, I'll say the easiest use case that people ask is, I just want to know if there are actually people using the rooms behind the closed doors. So there we can connect occupancy sensors, room occupancy sensor. They're quite easy to find, and they do come in wireless versions. So we have a ceiling mount room occupancy detection. Well, technically it's a presence detection. So it doesn't count the number of people, but it detects whether people are in the room. And it uses wireless technology, Bluetooth, to transmit the presence data to any gateway that will collect the data in the backend. And you can pair that with a e-paper sign. So when people are in the room, the e-paper shows red. When the room is available, it shows white. So you just look at the color of the e-paper, immediately you identify rooms that are occupied, and you identify ones that are available to use. So that is a great point, because really a lot of times when you look at renovating an existing old environment, you definitely don't want to tear down the building. You want to minimize the amount of construction. So but luckily nowadays, as I said, wireless technologies are just so available and so mature to be deployed at scale.
Fantastic. So we discussed earlier about how update our offices at home are. But when we're talking about what companies and employers try to do today, using your technology, for instance, what would you say the impact of these technologies are having on the employee experience? Because this is something that we discuss a lot about these days, right? The employee experience.
Yes.
What would be the impact?
So I would say that the starting point a lot of times really, to deploy any kind of space reservation system actually originates from, the CFO or from the CMO trying to get a sense of what the workspace is like, but try to optimize usage. As I said, either reduce the rent they have to pay or reduce the asset they allocate to corporate real estate. Because, to be honest, the occupancy just isn't as high as before COVID. So when, the top management decided to put in some kind of a space management, a lot of times you can get a taste of a space management a reservation tool as an app on the employee's phone. Okay. But a lot of these projects actually fail during the deployment phase because the adoption for the employees to install any app on their phone, it's just hard to get. And also, there's actually another side is that even if you manage to get all the employees to install your booking app, it's hard to get them to actually use it. Without having our signs out, I'll tell you the story. It's hard to get them to use an employee app just for booking rooms. People are lazy. They're lazy by nature. So if I can just see an empty room, I mean, a lot of rooms are empty these days, right? Why don't I just go in there, sit there? Why do I need to go through the hassle of booking that on my phone, right? So people just ignore the booking system. They go in and take whatever room they find empty. Now, let's say, imagine if that room was actually reserved by another employee. They come in the office, they see the room they reserved is actually occupied by someone sitting there. Are they actually going to tell the good friend saying, I booked the room and please get out and let me use that space? No, then they're going to just go find another space nearby. And that might happen to be a room reserved by somebody else. So in the end, people who actually use the booking system gets punished because they don't get the room they expect to get. And people who are lazy actually get to use the room. So it is a very easy way for a lot of booking systems to fail. We've seen that happen time after time. So people complain, my booking systems don't work. I mean, you're at your rooms. You probably know that story better than us. What do we do with it? How do I get my employees to install the app? How do I get my employees to use the booking system? So our solution is easy and actually works. Have a light at the front of the door, telling people that this room is booked. That's it. Don't go in there. If you go in there, you're rude. Someone is going to come and ask you to go out because they've booked the room. As easy as that. And, it builds a habit. So people, and especially when you have tying sensors with those, now a booking reservation system works and people feel they're respected for their reservations. And, in the end, the top management gets actual usage data. They know how much the rooms are actually used. And in turn, they can optimize their rent payment. They can optimize their corporate real estate allocation. So I think if you talk about, what's the most immediate return on deploying any one of these systems, this is probably the easiest example I could think of, not even to mention about the energy savings and all the things, just to get people to use room booking systems, desk booking systems, and optimize the corporate real estate. I think that's the quickest return.
Absolutely. So we discussed about retrofitting some of the older buildings, but when we're discussing the modern workspaces and the new buildings, the one that are being developed, what would be some innovative examples of IoT integrations that you've encountered?
Yeah. So for a new build, the freedom is actually much, much bigger. There's so much more room to explore. The foremost, a lot of the rooms now, when they at the design phase, they already think about having some kind of a control panel outside of the room, inside of the room. So, for example, you have PoE wires, so power over Ethernet connectivity are already planned at the outside of every bookable space. So that makes installing those scheduling panels so much easier. Same thing for meeting rooms. So if you have like small huddle space, for example, a lot of times these don't come with the necessary power for you to connect devices into. So in a properly planned out new build, definitely you could see devices like room scheduling panels outside the meeting rooms. You could see wayfinding kiosks, for example, at the entrance, at the lobby area, as people come in. A lot of times, you might not have a receptionist sitting at the entrance, especially during COVID time. A lot of companies have automated the process. So now you have kiosks that allow visitors to automatically check themselves in, fill out surveys, NDAs, health disclaimers, things like that, and get a sticker to identify themselves as they enter the space. You could have wayfinding kiosks. So for it's not necessarily visitors, but for employees visiting facilities that they're not familiar with. People travel around the country, travel around the world. Having these wayfinding kiosks just makes life much easier for finding the space that they reserve to work, finding their place for meetings, to finding their colleagues, even for maybe ordering amenities. A lot of these nice spaces, I could use one of these kiosks to get a coffee delivered to the room. So things like that greatly enhances the visitor experience, the employee experience. So the meeting rooms, in the small huddle spaces, for example, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of actually very affordable technologies for facilitating they call that BYOM, bring your own meeting kind of activity. So this means you come to a space with your laptop, and with one cable you're connecting to all the audio-visual equipment already placed inside this huddle space, and you start your meeting immediately. So as opposed to you come in with your laptop, the camera is dim, the lighting is dim, and the screen is tiny, like what I'm doing right now.
Yep.
You then in that alternative version, you'll be able to connect into the best audio video equipment inside that space. And in the back end, if you have a new build, you could easily place sensors, occupancy sensors, even people counting sensors, temperature sensors, CO2 sensors, all sorts of sensors that allows you to understand how the work environment is like, how weather impacts the environment. Whether it's in the summer day, which side of the office needs more air conditioning, which side of the office are people actually sitting in. So all those can be planned and in a relatively affordable ways today. And once you have the data, then you can integrate that into your power system. So you can easily turn off powers in areas where nobody is sitting. And as you say, right, you light up the area when people actually come into the space. I mean, technology like that is so readily available these days. Same thing for air conditioning. That saves a lot of energy if you can direct air conditioning only to areas where people are actually occupied. That is very, very challenging to do in a existing building that you try to renovate. But if you have a new build, it's relatively doable. That would be my input. I mean, given those, given the space management, the wayfinding guidance, the energy consumption, just make the employee feel the environment actually responds to your activities already gives a completely different experience for the employee when they come to the office.
Absolutely. So it's obviously much easier when you implement everything when it's by design, right? In a building that you are designing right now, you can have all the bells and whistles rather than working your way around, maybe historical building, right? Which would make things more difficult. But the bring your own device for the meetings, this is reminds me of a very important meeting I had in the office years ago. And it was me who was the managing director and the host of people visiting us. And we had exactly 4 minutes before the meeting started, and we needed to put something up on the screen. And my colleague had this Windows computer and was all showing green shade stuff. And we had two of our colleagues from IT, and they were working their way around and sweating, and it wasn't working. And I was the only one using a Mac back then. And I said, okay, would you let me try? I said, that would never work, because it needs. I said, but just let me try. Huh? And, I just plugged it in and it worked. And they were like, unbelievable. Nice. I said, yeah, because this is supposed to work by design. Whatever you have needs drivers, needs stuff. I said, I'm not a power user as you guys are, because they were not technical guys. But for me, it's very important, the whole experience. And obviously using...
It should just work.
Yeah, it should just work. Right. And I kind of... this is why Apple has changed a lot into everything that we put our hands around on. Because we kind of expect everything to work as basically the same, feel good, look good, pay a premium eventually, because, they're not cheap devices, right? But then again, you are expecting them to work rather than... In the middle of a presentation, it goes like, I need to update the driver because otherwise, I can't show anything on that screen. And people looking at this. Yeah,
Cosmin, you brought up a very interesting point. So, every time I go into a office space, the thing I start to measure is how long does it take for me to set up my meeting in this office? You can imagine there is a lot of rooms with these wireless projection systems that you have to first get a permission for that guest account. That already takes time. Then you need to connect into this corporate network and install this driver, right? So it's 10 minutes past before you could even start speaking. So that I totally agree with you. It should just plug in and work. And we should get there sometime soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's the expectations that we now have, because we have used different setups in different offices. We have a level of expectation when we go into a building, an office building, and we start looking around. So how quickly can I find my way around it?
That's right.
Is it something that you're seeing everywhere? This level of expectation is obviously growing because of even what you guys are implementing. So is it something that you see kind of everywhere?
Absolutely. We've all been spoiled by our cell phones, right? It's a nice surface. You slide across and you get everything you want. So especially look at the younger generation. They look at the screen, automatically they reach out, they try to touch it. They assume it's going to respond to their touch.
Yeah.
Right, by default. So every screen you deploy automatically attracts people's attention. They assume there's something that they can address. They could get something out of that touch screen. So whether it be the reservation screen, that needs to be responsive as well. They could probably go in there and browse today's agenda, and if this room is busy, they probably look for nearby rooms right from that screen. If they want to order catering, they can probably do it. They probably want to do it on that little screen. If they want to report a broken projector lamp, they will probably want to do it from that screen. So, people get accustomed to that kind of experience. They should just touch that and get help. And that's where I think room scheduling panels are moving towards today, integrating help. Same thing with kiosks, as you mentioned. When you enter a new space, or either it could be that I'm in the office, a multi-story building, and I want to see if my colleague is in the office today, maybe on a different floor. The first place I look, probably, if it's not on my phone, then it's probably on the kiosk. I will type up the name of my colleague to see where he is sitting for the day. So things like that just become so natural. And there's a lot of IoT that work in the background also to keep track of things. So I already mentioned some examples, but really the experience that we're all targeting is really frictionless. I think the keyword is that frictionless, and everything works with each other and really interoperate. I think being able to connect all the different dots on the common platform is super, super important.
Absolutely. But you make it sound so easy, which in fact I know it isn't, right? So what would be the challenges that you have to overcome on a regular basis?
Yeah, so that's the reality, right? I mean, you know, we're all tech companies. There is definitely there's a vision that we'll try to accomplish, but just as well, we've spoke about detecting people and redirecting air conditioning. Just by that, that itself is super hard to achieve. Today's buildings are owned by a different set of people than those who actually use it. It's very different from your home. You own your home and you use your home, so you could put whatever wire you wanted in it to do whatever you wanted to do. Not in a corporate real estate, corporate office. So there, the landlords and the tenants, they have different purposes in that building. They own different systems. So just to get those systems to talk to each other is super challenging. So I know there are many parties in our industry trying to get all the stakeholders to sit down on the table and try to hash out the differences and really get us towards a common API. If we get it there someday, I think that's one common technology platform. That's where we need to be for all those things that we spoke about to really happen. But before that, I have some, I would say, probably best practice or advices for integrators who are trying to get closer to the vision that we described today. So our company is a big believer in open systems, in open platforms. So for example, a lot of these IoT technology today, you could buy as a quote unquote end-to-end total solution. And usually that's an alarm that you should watch out for, because typically that means that's all they can do.
Yeah.
Don't think about expanding that system
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't think about expanding that system, because that's all you're getting. And if you want more features, then wait for that vendor to eventually come up with the next version, which a lot of times doesn't happen in a reasonable time frame. So our belief is really build and offer open platforms. So for example, our room scheduling panels, they're completely programmed. They're basically based on the Android platform. So you could run rooms in the front end. You could run a lot of other apps, services in the back end. The integrator can put in their own integration on that device, of course, given the user's permission. And really, if you want the sensor to talk to this panel, you may not need to wait for rooms to do it. You may, the integrator might be able to do it to some extent on their own. So I think you asked the pitfalls to watch out for. Really is be careful. Don't get locked up into proprietary systems. When you plan the systems, think about how eventually you're going to be connecting different components from different vendors, and you want to make sure that they all talk a open, some kind of open standard, some kind of open format. So, for example, sensors can support open formats where you can get raw data if you want to. And there are sensor companies that don't want you to touch raw data, because that's how they make the money. They want you to just pay them monthly and get stuck forever and just get the reports. So our big belief is, we build open platforms, and we think integrators should look for open platforms. Devices, for example, if we love rooms, we'll be able to install rooms on it, and when room gets an update, we'll get an update on the feature of the device automatically. That's how we believe the ecosystem should work.
That's a fantastic example, and also you were mentioning at the beginning that people are reluctant installing yet another app, using yet another platform. So I think all the major keywords here is this integration that you were talking about, because we kind of need to avoid and eliminate as much of that friction as possible, because it is in the end friction, right? Using another platform, having to log into a different system, and so on and so forth, and then you would have something that doesn't work with something, right? And you need to troubleshoot on it. I always do this analogy with the stuff around your home. So you have your washing machine is from manufacturer, right? Then light bulbs from another, then the light in your backyard, and the water sprinklers and everything from a different one. And there is basically no platform that can integrate. Yeah, maybe you can integrate them with some sort of Alexa Home or Google Home or something, but it's not quite the same, right? You have to do a lot of work, and you have to be sort of technically savvy to manage that into one single hub, which would be ideal, right? Having everything in one place. So that's we love your products as well because of the way they work together, right? And it's something that we want to see basically everywhere. This frictionless transition whenever you want to do something. And then, of course, it's going to be for different reasons. If I'm from facilities, I want to know when the light bulbs are out in a certain area. Or if I see that people don't work from there, there might be an issue I can solve, right? It might be too hot.
That's right.
It's next to a window in the summer. And it's maybe the air conditioning needs a little bit of tweaking there. So a lot of things we should be mindful of, and a lot of use cases pop up just as we speak also. One of the perceptions, though, is that such systems are expensive or prohibitively expensive for smaller companies. But I do know that medium-sized companies can also employ these sort of solutions. Can you share more light on that?
Yeah, I think there are two angles to this question. So one is how much the technology costs. I mean, whether small companies can find affordable technologies. I always say another side is what problems are smaller companies trying to solve. What benefits will these devices actually bring to smaller, medium-sized companies? I'll be frank that the problems like optimizing corporate real estate usage, maybe reducing energy consumption. A lot of times for small spaces, the result is rather limited, to be honest. So, for example, you might spend $10,000 on a setup, and in the end, it saves you $50 a month on energy consumption related costs. So, to be honest, a lot of these technologies do make more sense when they're deployed at scale. When you're looking at thousands of desks, hundreds of buildings, then all of these investment makes a lot of sense. But it's not to say that there's nothing available to small and medium enterprises. I would say we need to look at realistically what problems we're trying to address. For example, if I only have 3 meeting rooms, it probably does not make a lot of sense to really have a lot of extensive booking system just for the 3 rooms. However, if I look at meeting technologies, if I can let my employees connect into the meetings 10 minutes faster, that could be worth the investment already, because it impacts not just the employee themselves, it impacts everyone on the meeting, the clients, right? So that kind of technology to reduce the friction inside meetings could be a lower hanging fruit for small, medium-sized company to start looking into bringing technologies to smooth out the employee experience. Same thing, visitor management kiosk, wayfinding kiosks. Probably for a office of a single floor, it's probably not going to do a whole lot to help you. So don't look for the wrong areas, I would say, but really look at the work environment and think about what problem can I actually address by bringing the technology. I would say for small, medium size, probably start with the meeting space, the huddle space. Make sure as soon as people enter the space, they could get meetings up and running in 3 minutes. That's probably the benchmark. If you can't do that, then there's probably something you can improve just to make the life easier for the employee and so everybody else joining the meeting.
Absolutely. So obviously a wayfinding solution would make more sense for a university with a huge campus rather than a small company with 30 desks on the floor.
That's right.
But in terms of the experience that people have, some of these things I think they are worth investing into. Now, looking at what comes next, right? So in terms of future advancements in IoT specifically, what do you think is coming next that could help actually sustainability in workplaces? Because this is something that at least on the EU level, gets a lot of attention recently.
Definitely. So we're seeing increasingly people want to use as we mentioned earlier, use technology to understand space usage and in turn control energy consumption. So cut off lighting in areas where no one is scheduled to come in the day, cutting off air conditioning. There is also active usage of digital signage to direct people, maybe shut down entire floor for multi-story offices. Shut off sections of the floor when the occupancy is known to be low. Let's say on Mondays and Fridays, right? All 5 floors, open 3 of them instead of open all 5. Don't let people just say whatever they pick. Tell them to go to certain floors. So things like that definitely immediately can bring change to energy consumption patterns. Going longer term, there is also a lot of ESG incentives, at government level for buildings to introduce green, to introduce technologies that will enable lower consumption. For example, we know there are regulations depending on the region and country, but very common that if you control your vending system based on CO2 levels, for example, by adding a CO2 sensor into your vending system, then automatically you get certain credits and rewards, tax rewards from government. We've seen that in Europe and in North America as well. So I think increasingly we'll see more, I'll say, environmental friendly regulations incentivizing people to conserve. And that's where we need to be, right? I mean,
absolutely.
We had enough with the weather these days, and we cannot go worse. I mean, we have to figure out a way to get it back on track. So I'll say, every little thing helps. Just for example, shut off the big screen inside a meeting room after the meeting finishes. That can relatively easily be done if you connect your meeting reservation information to the power system. So I would say going into the future, the office is definitely one area. I mean, after all, if you look at statistics, buildings is the biggest contributor to greenhouse gases and CO2 energy consumption, right? Even more than transportation. So we're already seeing so much progress in electric cars, right? Almost reinventing the entire automotive industry. I think big things will and can and will happen in the building industry. The way we plan buildings, the way we operate buildings, need to be modernized. I mean, today we're really using relatively very little technology in these brick and mortar spaces. If you ask me about the trend, I just see we will continue to put technology into these spaces to make sure they don't waste what we don't need to consume.
Makes sense. So I was just wondering, when you get new projects, and especially the ones that are larger scale, is this dimension of sustainability something that it's there in the brief from the very beginning? Is it something that companies and landlords also include in their large scale projects?
Definitely. I mean, this is almost always comes out with as the number one criteria. I would say a lot of times it's a cost-driven incentive, just by cutting down energy consumption. I mean, these days energy prices are also high, so cutting down energy consumption is a big incentive already for these large enterprises to invest in technology. And as we mentioned earlier, if you look at just one office with 30 desks, probably there's not a lot to save. But if you look across the globe, you look at 3,000 buildings, that's a totally different story. I mean, 300 buildings, 3,000 meeting rooms, that's totally different scale. So that's almost the top incentive is to reduce energy consumption, reduce space usage, both in the square footage, so they can reduce rent. And also, if they own the buildings, they can probably let go of, they could probably like liquidate part of their corporate assets because the corporate real estate is a huge item on the corporate balance book. So if they can put good use to that asset to actually be able to produce something instead of just sitting there holding a relatively low number of people, then it gives them great incentive to find technology to help them drive that.
Absolutely. Speaking of sustainability, so one dimension is obviously knowing your carbon footprint, right? So of your workplace, I mean. What would be the best ways that companies can measure this? We are obviously talking about the smart office.
Yes, I need to first admit I'm not an expert on measuring carbon footprint, and I have to say I try to learn more about it. But I have to say it's a very challenging, it's a difficult question to track. I've been at various conferences talking about this topic. Obviously, working with my peers who try to achieve a lower carbon footprint. I would say right now. Probably the easiest way to measure is again on energy consumption numbers. So it's probably relatively easy to know the total amount of energy consumed by a fixed space. And compare this before and after deployment of technology, probably gives a pretty clear picture to how much of carbon emission we're reducing. How much of energy consumption we're reducing. But I also understand the topic of carbon footprint is much bigger than just measuring energy consumption. Things including like construction material, the construction process, etc., can all matter. So I have to say I'm definitely not a expert in this area, but when we build products, we want to make sure we build products that consume as little energy as possible. There are various benefits we get out of that. One, of course, I mean, it delivers better ESG results for our clients. But the other side really is to make the wiring a lot simpler. So, as I said, if you can reduce the energy down to that, the scale that it only needs a battery to run, then you need no wiring. So you save a lot in construction cost. If you can reduce the energy so they can run over a power over Ethernet cable, which is power delivered over your network wire, then you have a lot fewer power lines to pull around a building. So from the technology angle, we try to reduce the energy consumption of our devices for the sake of reducing energy costs, and also just to make installation deployment much easier.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's obviously more than just the sensors measuring, temperature and doing anything that we can, in order to reduce some of the power consumption. What we've done at Janus is put together a dashboard that actually shows companies, their own carbon footprint, and we are obviously working on that to improve it. And one of the interesting dimensions is the commute, right? Because people come to work. When you design the back to work sort of approach, this is something that should be considered. If people have to travel 100 miles, for instance, with their own cars, then they are and piling up, of course, emissions, right? Rather than just using the subway or an electric scooter or electric car. And things get interesting because if you have like 10,000 people, then multiply them. Those emissions, right? And you can actually plan, but also some of them think that, but I'm working from home, I have zero emissions. That's not true, because many times homes are less efficient than the offices, which are by design built to be efficient, right? So I think it's a very interesting dimension, which I'm really confident is going to pick up speed, right? Because of not only the incentives that you mentioned earlier, right, coming in from governments or for EU bodies or US bodies, but also because the newer generation are very aware about what's going on and the impact, and they connect the dots. What if I'm doing this, then this will happen, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go probably work for a company which is more involved in protecting the environment and everything else.
That's right.
I think it's going to be really interesting, and really looking forward to seeing the next projects you'll be working on and how these things can evolve, into what we call the future of work, which is always now, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really exciting to hear that Yarum is making advances in that area, because there's definitely I'll say the entire the ESG topic it is a big puzzle that all of us try to solve one way or another. So I do look forward to learning more about what we have built into the product, and probably complementary ways we could find devices, we could build devices that help you complete that picture together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking forward to that. So, John, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you on our podcast.
Cosmin, likewise. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.